Imagine a country where time slows, where every horizon, river, and coastline invites you to breathe deeply, and where beauty is not about grandeur but presence. Welcome to Uruguay, a land of endless plains, windswept beaches, and quiet towns that carry centuries of history and culture. From the colonial charm of Montevideo's streets to the untamed wilds of Rocha's Coast, this is a journey through a country that reveals its soul in subtle, unforgettable ways. Prepare to discover Uruguay like never before through its landscapes, its people, and the rhythms of life that make it one of the world's most remarkable hidden treasures. Before most travelers ever think about South America, their minds jump to famous names, loud cities, crowded landmarks, places already photographed a million times. But there is a country quietly resting between giants, untouched by hurry, untouched by hype, waiting for those who value feeling over spectacle. Uruguay does not shout for attention. It invites you to slow down, to breathe deeper, and to rediscover what travel was always meant to be. This is a land where time moves gently, where horizons stay open, and where simplicity feels like luxury. Uruguay sits along the southeastern edge of South America, bordered by Brazil and Argentina, with the Atlantic Ocean stretching endlessly along its eastern side. At first glance, it may seem modest in size, but its soul is wide and expansive. Rolling green plains spread beneath vast skies, rivers glide quietly toward the sea, and the air carries a sense of calm that settles into your chest the moment you arrive. There are no towering mountain ranges here, no dense jungles swallowing the land. Instead, Uruguay offers something rarer in today's world: space, balance, and stillness. This country has learned how to live without rushing. Life unfolds at a human pace. Conversations are unhurried. Mornings stretch gently into afternoons. Even the wind seems to slow as it moves across the countryside. Uruguayans value quality over excess, connection over competition. It is a place where people pause for mate. The traditional herbal drink passed hand to hand, symbolizing trust, friendship, and shared time. In these quiet rituals, you begin to understand the heart of the nation. Geographically, Uruguay feels like a bridge between worlds. European influence blends seamlessly with South American warmth. Spanish and Italian heritage echoes through architecture, food, and customs, yet the spirit remains unmistakably local. The land is shaped by grasslands known as pampas, which ripple like waves under the sun. These plains have defined the country's history, economy, and identity. They raise generations of ranchers, poets, and free thinkers who learn to respect the land rather than dominate it. Uruguay's relationship with nature is deeply rooted. The countryside is not something distant or reserved for postcards. It is part of daily life. Cattle roam freely across open fields. Horses move gracefully along dirt roads, and the horizon often feels endless. There is a quiet pride in this openness, in the understanding that beauty does not need to be dramatic to be powerful. Here, silence speaks as loudly as sound. What makes Uruguay truly stand apart is not just its landscapes, but its philosophy. This is one of the most socially progressive countries in the region, built on values of fairness, education, and stability. It has chosen peace over conflict, dialogue over division. That sense of security and openness is felt everywhere, from city streets to remote rural paths. Travelers often describe Uruguay not as a destination, but as a feeling, one that lingers long after leaving. The coastline adds another layer to the country's character. Rivers meet the ocean in long, graceful curves. Beaches stretch wide and uncrowded, offering space to think, to walk, to simply exist. Unlike louder coastal destinations, Uruguay's shores feel personal. They do not demand attention. They offer refuge. Sunsets here are slow and poetic, painting the sky in soft colors that reflect the country's gentle spirit. Uruguay does not promise adventure in the traditional sense. Instead, it offers something deeper. It offers clarity. It invites you to remember what matters. In a world obsessed with speed and noise, this small nation stands quietly confident, proving that greatness does not always arrive with spectacle. Sometimes, it arrives with a calm breeze, a shared drink, and the simple freedom of open land. As this journey begins, Uruguay reveals itself, not through grand gestures, but through subtle moments. A road stretching into green distance, a city that breathes with the sea, a culture built on kindness, balance, and time well spent. This is Uruguay, understated, authentic, and quietly unforgettable. If Uruguay has a heartbeat, it can be felt most clearly in Montevideo. This is not a city that overwhelms you at first glance. It unfolds slowly, like a conversation that grows richer the longer you stay. Set along the wide curve of the Rio de la Plata, Montevideo blends old-world charm with a relaxed coastal rhythm, creating a capital that feels lived in, human, and deeply real. From the very start, the city's relationship with the water defines its character. The Rambla, a long seaside promenade stretching for miles, is the soul of Montevideo. It is where the city exhales. People walk, jog, talk, laugh, sip mate, and watch the sky change colors as the sun drifts toward the horizon. There is no rush here. Time softens along the waterfront, and the simple act of watching the river feel like watching the ocean becomes a daily ritual. Montevideo's history is written into its streets. In the Ciudad Vieja, the old town, colonial buildings stand shoulder to shoulder with art galleries, cafes, and hidden courtyards. Weathered facades tell stories of Spanish and Portuguese rule, of merchants, sailors, and revolutions that shaped the nation. Walking these streets feels like stepping through layers of time, where the past is never erased, only adapted. Street musicians echo through narrow lanes, and murals add color to walls that have witnessed centuries of change. At the center of the old city, Plaza Independencia opens like a pause between eras. On one side stands the historic gateway to Ciudad Vieja. On the other, modern buildings rise, symbolizing the country's steady evolution. Beneath the square lies the mausoleum of José Gervasio Artigas, Uruguay's national hero. His presence is not celebrated with grand excess, but with quiet respect, mirroring the nation's values of dignity and restraint. Montevideo's neighborhoods each carry their own personality. Positos offers wide beaches and modern life, where families and students share the shoreline. Parque Rodó blends green spaces with cultural life, where laughter, music, and late conversations spill into the night. Cordón and Palermo reveal the creative pulse of the city, filled with bookstores, small theaters, and cafes where ideas are exchanged as freely as coffee refills. Food in Montevideo is not just nourishment, it is tradition. The scent of grilled meat drifts from parillas across the city. Asado is more than a meal. It is a gathering, a reason to stay longer at the table. Markets like Mercado del Puerto bring people together under iron roofs, where conversations flow as easily as the wine. Simple ingredients, cooked with patience, reflect a culture that values authenticity over flash. Despite being a capital city, Montevideo never feels crowded or chaotic. Its streets are walkable, its pace forgiving. Public spaces are cherished, not rushed through. Children play, elders sit and observe, and everyone seems to belong. The city feels safe, open, and welcoming. Qualities that are not accidental, but carefully nurtured over time. Music and culture pulse quietly beneath the surface. Candombe rhythms echo from Afro-Uruguayan neighborhoods, especially during carnival season, when drums fill the air with history and pride. Tango, shared with neighboring Argentina, carries its own local flavor here, slower and more introspective. These cultural expressions are not performances for visitors. They are living traditions, woven into daily life. As evening falls, Montevideo glows softly. Streetlights reflect off stone sidewalks, and conversations linger in doorways. The river darkens into a vast mirror, catching the last light of the sky. There is a sense of balance here, between old and new, movement and stillness, solitude and community. Montevideo does not try to impress. It invites you to stay, to observe, to feel at home. It teaches you that a city does not need to be loud to be alive. Sometimes, its greatest strength lies in its calm, steady rhythm, a rhythm that stays with you long after you leave its shores. Some places feel like they exist between moments, untouched by urgency, preserved by memory. Colonia del Sacramento is one of those places. From the first step onto its cobblestone streets, time loosens its grip. The noise of the modern world fades, replaced by the quiet rhythm of footsteps on stone and the soft whisper of the river nearby. This is not a destination you rush through. It is a place that asks you to slow down and listen. Colonia sits on the banks of the Rio de la Plata, directly across from Buenos Aires, yet it feels worlds apart. Founded by the Portuguese in the 17th century and later shaped by Spanish rule, the town carries a layered identity unlike anywhere else in Uruguay. Its historic quarter, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is not polished or over-restored. It is beautifully imperfect. Walls show their age, doors lean slightly, and vines creep across sunlit facades, reminding you that history here is alive, not staged. Walking through the Barrio Histórico feels like wandering through a living museum. Narrow streets curve gently without warning, leading to quiet plazas, hidden viewpoints, and sudden glimpses of the water. Old stone houses with thick walls and wooden shutters speak of colonial struggles, of empires that came and went, leaving behind fragments of their ambitions. Cannons still face the river, silent witnesses to battles long forgotten by the world, but remembered by the land. Light plays a special role in Colonia. In the morning, sunlight filters softly through tree branches, casting moving shadows across uneven stones. By afternoon, the town glows warmly, as if wrapped in golden calm. And at sunset, Colonia becomes something almost unreal. The river turns to molten copper, the sky stretches endlessly, and people gather quietly along the shoreline, not to take photos, but to watch. Here, sunsets are not entertainment. They are shared moments of reflection. Beyond its historic charm, Colonia carries a deep sense of intimacy. Life moves slowly. Locals greet each other by name. Cafes spill onto sidewalks where conversations last longer than planned. There is no pressure to do anything except be present. This gentle pace invites you to notice details you might otherwise miss. The texture of old stone under your fingers, the sound of wind moving through narrow streets, the way the river breathes against the shore. Food in Colonia reflects its simplicity. Small restaurants serve local wines, fresh fish, and traditional dishes without unnecessary flourish. Meals feel homemade, even when eaten out. You are encouraged to linger, to enjoy each bite, to let conversation stretch into the evening. In Colonia, eating is not rushed, and neither are relationships. The town's museums, scattered quietly through the historic district, offer glimpses into daily life centuries ago. Old maps, furniture, and artifacts tell stories of traders, settlers, and families who built lives along this strategic river crossing. But the true museum is the town itself. Every cracked wall and weathered roof holds memory. As night falls, Colonia grows even quieter. Streetlights glow softly, illuminating empty streets that feel safe and welcoming. The absence of noise is striking. There is a rare comfort in this silence, a sense that nothing is being demanded of you. The river reflects the moonlight, and the town rests, unchanged, patient. Colonia del Sacramento does not compete for attention. It does not need to. Its power lies in its stillness, in its ability to remind you that beauty can be subtle, and history does not have to shout to be heard. Long after leaving, what remains is not a checklist of sights, but a feeling of calm, of timelessness, of having briefly stepped outside the rush of the world. Beyond the cities and historic towns, Uruguay opens into a landscape that feels endless and free. The countryside, shaped by rolling plains and wide skies, is the quiet backbone of the nation. This is the land of the Pampas, where grasslands stretch to the horizon and life moves in harmony with nature. Here, Uruguay reveals a deeper identity, one rooted in simplicity, resilience, and a powerful connection to the earth. Driving through the interior, the scenery unfolds slowly. Green fields ripple in the wind like a living ocean. Cattle graze calmly, scattered across open land, without fences in sight. Horses move with effortless grace, their silhouettes framed against a sky that feels impossibly large. There is a sense of openness that clears the mind. No towering structures, no dense traffic, only land and sky in quiet conversation. The Pampas have shaped Uruguay's history and culture more than any city ever could. This is the birthplace of the Gaucho, the skilled horseman of the plains. More than a figure of folklore, the Gaucho represents independence, honor, and self-reliance. Their legacy lives on in rural life, in traditions passed from one generation to the next. You see it in the way horses are handled with respect, in the careful preparation of meals over open fire, and in the pride taken in craftsmanship and land stewardship. Estancias, traditional ranches scattered across the countryside, offer a glimpse into this way of life. Some are working farms, Others welcome travelers seeking authenticity rather than luxury. Days here begin early, guided by the sun and the needs of the land. The rhythm is steady and purposeful. Meals are shared, stories exchanged, and evenings end beneath stars that feel closer than anywhere else. In these moments, modern distractions fade, replaced by something grounding and real. The land itself feels generous. Fertile soil supports agriculture that has long been the heart of Uruguay's economy. Fields of crops blend seamlessly into pasture land, creating a patchwork of green that changes subtly with the seasons. There is a quiet confidence in this landscape, an understanding that abundance comes from patience, not exploitation. Nature in the countryside is not dramatic, but it is deeply calming. Rivers wind gently through fields, lined with trees that offer shade and shelter. Bird life is rich and constant, filling the air with movement and sound. The absence of crowds allows wildlife to thrive, and encounters feel personal rather than staged. This is a land that does not demand attention, but rewards those who take the time to observe. What stands out most in rural Uruguay is the sense of balance. People here live close to the land without trying to dominate it. Traditions coexist with modern life, technology with timeless routines. There is pride, but not arrogance, strength, but also softness. Life is measured not by speed, but by seasons, weather, and shared experience. As the sun lowers, the countryside transforms. Light softens, shadows stretch across the fields, and the sky becomes a canvas of color. Evenings are quiet. The only sounds are distant cattle, wind through grass, and the occasional call of a bird settling in for the night. It is in these moments that the true spirit of Uruguay reveals itself. Calm, steady, and deeply rooted. The countryside is not a place you simply pass through on the way to somewhere else. It is a destination in its own right, offering clarity, peace, and a reminder of what life feels like when it is allowed to breathe. In the open plains of Uruguay, you do not just see the land, you feel it, and it stays with you long after the horizon fades from view. Where the land finally meets the Atlantic, Uruguay reveals a softer, more contemplative side of its coastline. This is not a shore of towering cliffs or roaring waves. It is a coast shaped by long horizons, wide beaches, and an unspoken invitation to slow down. Uruguay's eastern edge feels open and personal, offering space rather than spectacle, and it is along this coast that many travelers discover the country's quiet magic. The journey east unfolds gradually. Beach towns appear without drama, each with its own personality and rhythm. Some feel lively in the summer, filled with laughter and conversation. Others remain peaceful year-round, where the sound of the sea becomes the dominant voice. What unites them is a shared respect for simplicity. Buildings remain low. Nature stays visible. The ocean is never far from sight. The beaches themselves stretch wide and generous, with soft sand that seems to absorb both sound and stress. Walking along the shore, you notice how uncrowded it feels, even in popular areas. There is room to breathe, to wander, to think. The Atlantic here is steady and powerful, yet never overwhelming. Waves roll in with patience, reflecting the country's overall rhythm. Along the coast, dunes rise gently behind the beaches, shaped by wind and time. Grasses anchor the sand, creating a delicate balance between land and sea. This fragile ecosystem is protected with care, a reflection of Uruguay's respect for its natural heritage. From these dunes, the view stretches endlessly, sky and water blending into a single horizon that invites quiet reflection. Coastal life moves at its own pace. Mornings begin with fishermen preparing their boats, checking nets, and greeting the day without urgency. Cafes open slowly, welcoming locals and travelers alike with strong coffee and simple food. Afternoons drift by under the sun, marked by swims, long walks, and conversations that seem to have no deadline. Food along the coast carries the flavor of the sea. Fresh fish, grilled simply, becomes the centerpiece of meals. There is no need for elaborate presentation. The quality speaks for itself. Shared tables, ocean views, and unhurried time turn even the simplest dish into an experience. Eating here feels like part of the landscape, not separate from it. As the day fades, the coast transforms. Sunsets along Uruguay's Atlantic shore are unassuming, yet unforgettable. The sky softens into shades of gold, pink, and deep blue. People gather quietly, standing or sitting in silence, watching as the sun lowers into the water. It is a collective pause, a shared appreciation for something that happens every day, yet never loses its power. Night brings a different calm. The air cools, the stars emerge, and the sound of the ocean deepens. In smaller towns, lights are few, allowing the sky to dominate. Even in more developed areas, there is a sense of restraint, an understanding that nature should lead, not be overshadowed. Uruguay's coast does not try to impress with excess. It offers something more lasting, a chance to reconnect with the sea without noise or pressure, a place where time stretches gently, and the world feels simpler. Here, the Atlantic is not just a body of water. It is a companion, steady and enduring, shaping a coastline that invites you to stay a little longer and breathe a little deeper. There is a moment when Uruguay surprises you, when its quiet confidence briefly flirts with glamour and energy without ever losing its balance. That moment arrives in Punta del Este. Often described as the country's most famous destination, this coastal city reveals a different rhythm of Uruguay, one where elegance, nature, and leisure exist side by side, never overpowering one another. Punta del Este sits on a narrow peninsula where two waters meet. On one side, the calm Rio de la Plata stretches wide and smooth. On the other, the Atlantic Ocean arrives with deeper blues and stronger waves. This meeting of waters gives the city its unique character. You can watch the sun rise over the ocean and set over the river in the same day, a rare gift that feels almost symbolic of Punta del Este's dual personality. By day, the city feels relaxed and open. Wide boulevards lead toward long beaches, each with its own atmosphere. Some shores are calm and inviting, perfect for slow swims and quiet walks. Others feel more alive, shaped by wind and surf, drawing those who seek movement and energy. Yet even at its busiest, Punta del Este never feels overwhelming. Space remains its greatest luxury. The city's architecture reflects this balance. Modern buildings rise near the coastline, elegant but restrained. Luxury exists here, but it does not shout. It blends into the landscape, framed by sky and sea. Between apartment towers and hotels, green spaces and open views are carefully preserved, ensuring the horizon never disappears. One of Punta del Este's most iconic symbols rests quietly along the sand. A giant sculpture of fingers emerging from the beach has become a global image, yet in person it feels playful rather than dramatic. It invites curiosity, photos, and laughter, reminding visitors that art here interacts gently with nature instead of competing against it. Beyond the beaches, Punta del Este offers moments of stillness. The port area carries a slower pace, where boats rock softly and sea lions lounge lazily on the docks, unbothered by human presence. Fishermen prepare their catch while cafes nearby fill with low conversation and the clink of cups. Life feels easy here, as if stress dissolves somewhere between land and water. As afternoon fades, the city shifts. Light softens, and the peninsula glows in warm tones. People drift toward viewpoints and quiet stretches of shore, drawn by the promise of sunset. Watching the sky change color over the Rio de la Plata becomes a daily ritual, shared silently by locals and visitors alike. The moment feels unforced, natural, and deeply grounding. Nightfall brings another transformation. Restaurants open, conversations linger longer, and the city hums softly rather than roars. There is nightlife here, but it never overwhelms the calm that defines Uruguay. Even in its most vibrant moments, Punta del Este maintains a sense of control, an understanding that enjoyment does not require excess. Just beyond the city, quieter landscapes wait. Rocky shores, small coves, and stretches of untouched coastline remind you that nature remains the true centerpiece. A short drive is enough to escape the buzz and return to silence, reinforcing how closely connected Punta del Este remains to its surroundings. Punta del Este is not a contradiction to Uruguay's identity. It is an extension of it, a place where beauty, comfort, and nature meet without conflict. It shows that elegance can exist without urgency and excitement without chaos. In this city between waters, Uruguay reveals yet another facet of its character. Confident, composed, and effortlessly inviting. There is a stretch of Uruguay where the modern world loosens its grip, where roads narrow, signals fade, and nature quietly takes control. This is the wild eastern coast, a place that feels raw, elemental, and deeply alive. Here, the country steps away from polish and comfort, revealing a landscape shaped by wind, salt, and time. The moment you arrive, you sense it. This is Uruguay at its most untamed and most honest. Along the coast of Rocha, the land feels wider, the sky larger, and human presence lighter. Beaches stretch for miles without interruption, framed by dunes that rise and fall like frozen waves. The sand shifts constantly under the influence of strong coastal winds, creating a landscape that never looks the same twice. It feels less like a destination and more like a living organism, breathing with the rhythm of the ocean. Cabo Polonio stands as the soul of this wild coast. Reaching it requires leaving paved roads behind and crossing dunes in special vehicles, a journey that feels like crossing into another time. There are no conventional streets here, no large hotels, no bright lights competing with the stars. The village lives without street lamps, allowing darkness to reclaim the night. When the sun sets, the sky explodes with stars, and silence settles in a way few places on Earth can offer. Life in Cabo Polonio is shaped by simplicity. Small houses cling to the sand, weathered by decades of wind and salt. People move slowly, deliberately, as if respecting the pace set by nature. Electricity is limited, schedules are flexible, and time becomes something you feel rather than measure. In this environment, distractions fade, replaced by awareness. You notice the sound of waves crashing against rocks, the cry of seabirds overhead, and the constant presence of the wind. The coastline here is dramatic and powerful. Waves strike rocky outcrops with relentless energy, sending white spray into the air. Sea lions gather along the shore, resting on warm stone, completely at ease in their domain. Watching them feels like witnessing a world untouched by urgency, where survival and rest exist in perfect balance. Beyond Cabo Polonio, the wild coast continues its quiet display. Small fishing villages appear sparsely along the shore, their lives tied closely to the sea. Boats rest on the sand, waiting for the right conditions. Nets dry in the sun. The rhythm of daily life follows tides and weather rather than clocks. There is a humility in this way of living, a deep understanding that nature always leads. Walking these beaches feels almost meditative. The vastness clears the mind. Footprints disappear quickly, erased by wind and water, reminding you how temporary human presence truly is. The horizon feels endless, uninterrupted by buildings or noise. Even the ocean seems louder here, its voice unfiltered and strong. Sunsets along this coast are unforgettable. The sky darkens slowly, shifting through layers of color, while the wind carries the scent of salt and earth. As night arrives, darkness is complete and comforting. Without artificial light, the stars take over, creating a ceiling of quiet brilliance. It is a reminder of how the world looked before constant illumination, before noise filled every corner of life. Uruguay's wild coast does not cater to convenience. It offers something more meaningful, a return to essentials, a chance to feel small in the best possible way. In this untamed stretch of land, you are not entertained. You are grounded, and long after leaving, the memory of wind, stars, and endless shore continues to echo, calling you back to a place where nature still speaks first. There is a quieter side of Uruguay that flows far from the ocean, a side shaped not by waves, but by rivers, warm waters, and slow-moving afternoons. It is here, along the country's inland waterways, that Uruguay reveals a deeply soothing dimension, one that feels restorative, timeless, and unexpectedly powerful. This is a landscape that does not rush to impress. It heals, gently and patiently. The Uruguay River forms a natural boundary along the western edge of the country, stretching calmly from north to south. Its waters move with purpose, but without urgency, carving fertile land and sustaining life along its banks. Towns that rise beside the river feel grounded and intimate, connected by water rather than highways. Life here follows the river's rhythm, steady and reassuring. In the north, the land begins to change subtly. The plains soften into rolling terrain, and beneath the surface, geothermal forces quietly rise. This is the region of Uruguay's thermal springs, where, naturally, heated waters emerge as a gift from deep within the earth. Places like Daman and Arapi are not loud resort destinations. They are sanctuaries of rest, where warm pools invite you to slow down and let time dissolve. Stepping into the thermal waters feels almost ceremonial. The warmth spreads gradually, easing tension from muscles and thoughts alike. Steam drifts gently into the air, especially during cooler months, blurring the line between water and sky. Conversation soften, movements slow. Even silence feels welcome. These springs have drawn visitors for generations, not for luxury, but for renewal. Surrounding the thermal areas, nature remains present and unforced. Palm trees sway lightly, birds move between branches, and the air carries a quiet freshness. The simplicity of the environment enhances the experience. Nothing competes for attention. The water becomes the focus, reminding you how powerful stillness can be. Further along the Uruguay River, agricultural landscapes thrive. Citrus groves, vineyards, and farmland stretch toward the horizon, nourished by the river's steady presence. This region plays a vital role in the country's food and wine production, yet it retains a calm, unindustrialized feel. Farms operate with respect for the land, blending productivity with balance. Towns along the river feel welcoming and unpretentious. Streets are calm, conversations familiar, and community life strong. Cafes overlook the water, offering shaded places to sit and watch boats drift by. Fishing remains part of daily life, both as livelihood and tradition. The river is not just scenery here. It is companion, provider, and storyteller. As the sun lowers, the river transforms. Reflections stretch across its surface, turning water into a mirror of gold and copper. Evenings arrive gently. The heat of the day fades, replaced by a comfortable stillness. People gather quietly, not for spectacle, but for shared calm. These moments feel deeply human, grounded in routine and connection. What makes this inland Uruguay so special is its ability to restore without demanding anything in return. There are no dramatic landmarks, no urgent itineraries. Instead, there is space. Space to breathe. Space to feel. Space to remember how it feels to truly rest. In the flow of the river and the warmth of the springs, Uruguay offers a rare kind of luxury. One built not on excess, but on care. Care for the body, the land, and the rhythm of life itself. It is a reminder that sometimes the most meaningful journeys happen far from the edge of the sea, in places where the world moves quietly, and you are finally free to do the same. Uruguay's soul is not found only in its landscapes. It lives in its people, its traditions, and the quiet rituals that shape everyday life. To understand the country fully, you must listen to its culture, not as something performed, but as something lived. Here, identity is woven gently into daily routines, passed along through shared moments rather than grand displays. One of the most recognizable symbols of Uruguayan life is mate. This traditional herbal drink is more than a beverage. It is a social bond. A single cup and straw are passed from hand to hand, creating a circle of trust and connection. Mate accompanies conversations, walks, work breaks, and sunsets. It slows time and invites presence. Through this simple ritual, you begin to understand how deeply Uruguay values togetherness and patience. Music and rhythm flow quietly through the country's veins. Candombe, born in Afro-Uruguayan communities, carries the heartbeat of history through its drums. The sound is powerful yet grounded, echoing through neighborhoods during celebrations and festivals. It is not polished or restrained. It is raw, communal, and deeply expressive. Each rhythm tells a story of resilience, memory, and identity. Tango, often associated with Buenos Aires, holds a softer presence in Uruguay. Here, it feels more introspective, less theatrical. It exists in old cafes, intimate dance halls, and quiet evenings, where music lingers in the background rather than demanding attention. The dance reflects the country's character, close, thoughtful, and emotionally honest. Food is another doorway into Uruguay's culture. Meals are unhurried, shared, and deeply meaningful. Asado, the traditional barbecue, is a ritual that brings families and friends together. Meat cooks slowly over open fire. Conversations stretch across hours, and there is no rush to finish. What matters is not the meal itself, but the time spent around it. Through food, Uruguay expresses its belief that connection is more important than convenience. Sports, especially football, unite the country with quiet pride. Uruguay's history in the sport is legendary, yet the passion feels grounded rather than overwhelming. Matches are watched together, discussed calmly, and remembered with respect. Victory and defeat are treated as part of a larger story, one that values teamwork and resilience over spectacle. Art and literature hold an important place in Uruguayan life. Writers, poets, and thinkers have long shaped the country's intellectual identity. Bookstores, libraries, and small theaters remain vital spaces for exchange and reflection. Creativity here is not driven by trends. It grows slowly, nourished by curiosity and depth. What stands out most in Uruguay's culture is its sense of balance. People work, but they rest. They celebrate, but they reflect. Life is not rushed, nor is it stagnant. It moves with intention. There is a deep respect for personal space, yet also a strong sense of community. Differences are approached with openness rather than conflict. Even in its progressiveness, Uruguay remains grounded. Social change has been guided by dialogue and consensus, reinforcing a national identity built on fairness and trust. This stability creates an atmosphere where people feel secure enough to be kind, open enough to be themselves. Uruguay's culture does not announce itself loudly. It reveals itself through everyday moments: a shared drink, a slow meal, a rhythm heard in the distance. These simple expressions carry the weight of centuries, reminding you that a country's true richness is not measured in landmarks, but in the way its people choose to live. Uruguay is a country that reveals its power quietly. There are no overwhelming mountains, no massive jungles, no chaotic cityscapes to shock your senses. Instead, its beauty lies in subtlety, in balance, in moments that invite reflection rather than demand attention. As this journey draws to its close, it becomes clear that Uruguay is not just a place you visit. It is a place you feel, a land that seeps into memory long after you leave its shores. From the moment you arrive, the country encourages you to slow down. Its vast plains, winding rivers, and gentle hills are reminders that life does not need to be hurried to be meaningful. Walking along the Rambla in Montevideo, watching locals share mate, or simply gaze at the sun spilling over the Rio de la Plata, you understand the value Uruguay places on presence and connection. In its cities and towns, life unfolds without unnecessary tension, yet with a rhythm that is both purposeful and unpretentious. The coastlines of Uruguay offer a lesson in contrasts that somehow coexist perfectly. From the vibrant energy of Punta del Este, with its sun-soaked beaches, art, and modernity, to the quiet, wild expanses of Rocha, where sand dunes stretch endlessly, and the wind carries only the cry of seabirds. The country teaches that both exuberance and stillness can define beauty. Each shoreline tells a story, whether it is one of leisure, tradition, or survival, and the ocean remains a constant, grounding presence across all experiences. Inland, the countryside speaks a different language. Here, open fields, estancias, and horse-dotted pampas show the enduring relationship between people and len. The Gauchos, symbols of independence and mastery over nature, embody a lifestyle that values respect, patience, and harmony. Rivers, thermal springs, and hidden wildlife sanctuaries add layers of depth, offering both sustenance and a sense of wonder. This is a Uruguay where nature is not just a backdrop, but a teacher, shaping culture, values, and everyday life. Culture in Uruguay flows quietly, but profoundly. Mate is shared, not consumed alone. Music carries history in every rhythm. Candombe drums echo centuries of stories. Tango moves with introspection, and folk songs tell of lives intertwined with land and community. Meals are long, social, and meaningful. Football is played with pride, but not with pretense. Art, literature, and theater flourish subtly, integrated into the fabric of life rather than staged for show. Every cultural expression is lived rather than performed. What strikes visitors most is the country's sense of balance. Uruguay progresses without losing touch with its roots. Modernity exists alongside tradition. Urban life coexists with open plains. Celebration blends with contemplation. Even in a world obsessed with speed, this nation demonstrates that patience, care, and reflection have their own strength. It is a land where you can see the world clearly because it has chosen to move gently within it. As night falls, Uruguay transforms yet again. City lights glow softly, rivers reflect the sky, and stars dominate rural horizons. Silence becomes profound, filling the spaces between sounds of wind, waves, and distant animals. It is in this quiet that the country's essence emerges fully, a place of calm power, of understated beauty, of timeless presence. It is not meant to impress instantly, but to linger in memory, shaping the way you perceive both land and life. Uruguay is ultimately an invitation to slow down, to appreciate simplicity, to value connection over distraction, and to feel the world rather than rush through it. Its landscapes, towns, rivers, and traditions all teach the same lesson. Greatness does not need to shout. It can exist quietly, patiently, and profoundly. In Uruguay, this quiet greatness surrounds you, guides you, and stays with you long after the journey ends. When you leave, you carry not only images of beaches, estancias, and colonial streets, but a deep sense of serenity, respect, and perspective. Uruguay does not just fill the eye, it nourishes the mind and calms the spirit. And that is why this small country, tucked between giants, stands as one of the most remarkable, understated, and unforgettable places on Earth. The journey through Uruguay culminates in a realization. This is a country that leaves its mark not through grandeur, but through the subtle imprint of its character. Here, every horizon, every gentle hill, every quiet riverbank tells a story. Unlike destinations that demand attention, Uruguay invites reflection. Its power lies in restraint, in balance, and in the way life itself seems to breathe in harmony with the land and water. As you traverse the countryside, it becomes clear that Uruguay's identity is inseparable from its landscape. Rolling green plains stretch farther than the eye can see, punctuated by estancias where horses graze in calm independence. These are not controlled farms designed for spectacle. They are living, breathing ecosystems where humans and animals coexist with respect. The Gaucho, emblematic of the Pampas, embodies freedom, resilience, and a deep connection to the earth. Observing daily life here, you see a rhythm set by sun and soil rather than clocks and deadlines, a pace that allows space for thought, observation, and presence. Rivers and thermal springs scattered across the country further reinforce this sense of harmony. Along the Uruguay and Rio de la Plata rivers, towns emerge that feel suspended in time. Boats drift lazily along quiet waters. Fishermen prepare for the day with patient care, and sunlight dances across the surface in a mesmerizing play of light and reflection. Thermal springs provide moments of quiet rejuvenation. The warm waters invite you to let go of tension and reconnect with your own body and mind, reminding you that rest can be as powerful as action. Uruguay's coastlines continue this theme of duality. From Punta del Este, with its modern architecture, art installations, and luxurious beaches, to the untouched expanses of Rocha, where sand dunes and windswept shores dominate, the country balances excitement and solitude. Life at the coast is paced by the tides and sun, rather than by schedules. Small fishing villages, scattered along the eastern shore, preserve traditions that have endured for generations. Nets dry in the sun, small boats rock gently, and families share meals of fresh fish, grounded in routine and rhythm rather than spectacle. The cultural heartbeat of Uruguay is equally understated, yet profound. Music, whether the drum-driven pulse of candombe, the intimate strains of tango, or the soft notes of folk instruments, reminds visitors that tradition is lived daily. Mate, shared among friends and strangers alike, is not just a drink, but a ritual of connection and trust. Meals are long, social experiences where conversation flows as freely as the local wine. Football binds communities without becoming overwhelming, and art, literature, and theater thrive quietly, integrated into the rhythm of life rather than staged for visitors. What becomes evident in this final stretch is Uruguay's commitment to balance. The country moves forward without erasing the past, modernizing without losing its humanity, celebrating without excess, and embracing change while preserving essence. Even in urban centers like Montevideo, the influence of the river, the sun, and the open sky reminds residents and travelers alike that life need not be hurried to be fulfilling. Cities exist in dialogue with nature, streets invite slow exploration, and public spaces encourage human connection over convenience. Evenings across the country reveal another layer of its quiet power. As night falls over rural plains, thermal resorts, or river towns, the sky dominates. Stars emerge in patterns that seem impossible to capture, while moonlight glimmers across rivers and oceans alike. Silence is profound. The gentle sound of wind through grass, waves against the shore, or distant animals reinforces a sense of place, grounding visitors in a reality where stillness is more valuable than spectacle. Uruguay's strength is subtle. It is not measured in monuments, skyscrapers, or dramatic vistas. It is found in the way the land allows space, the way culture nurtures connection, and the way life moves in rhythm with nature rather than against it. Every town, every river, every hill carries a sense of patience and authenticity, inviting travelers to recalibrate their own pace. By the end of this journey, Uruguay is no longer just a location on a map. It becomes an experience etched into memory, a combination of landscapes, people, traditions, and quiet rhythms that stay with you long after you leave. The country teaches that travel is not about consumption of sights, but about understanding and absorbing essence. Its subtle power, its calm confidence, and its timeless beauty leave an impression that lingers, shaping how you see both the world and your place within it. Uruguay is a whisper among giants, a gentle reminder that greatness often comes quietly, and that some of the most unforgettable journeys are those that touch not the eye alone, but the heart, mind, and soul. Uruguay's essence is revealed most fully when you allow yourself to experience the country beyond its surface, to move beyond cities, beaches, and historic streets, and into the spaces where nature, culture, and life intersect seamlessly. Here, the ordinary becomes extraordinary because it is lived fully, with intention and care. In this final exploration, Uruguay's depth emerges not in spectacles or grandiosity, but in subtle, enduring moments that quietly demand attention. Traveling inland, the expansiveness of the countryside becomes unmistakable. The Pampas stretch endlessly, green waves punctuated by herds of cattle and solitary horses grazing peacefully. The rhythm of life here is set by the land and sky, rather than clocks or schedules. Mornings begin with soft light spilling over the horizon, illuminating estancias where generations have worked the land with steady hands and calm hearts. These ranches are more than agricultural hubs. They are living symbols of Uruguay's heritage, where human effort exists in harmony with nature rather than in domination of it. The Gauchos, Uruguay's iconic horsemen, remain central to this rural identity. Their lives, once romanticized in poetry and song, continue to embody independence, skill, and deep connection to the land. Observing them is like watching a conversation between human and environment unfold effortlessly, each movement deliberate, each decision guided by respect for animals and earth alike. It is a rhythm that visitors cannot replicate, but can witness, learning a lesson in patience and coexistence that no guidebook can convey. Water shapes life here as much as land. The Uruguay River, wide and calm, provides sustenance, recreation, and a sense of continuity. Small towns cling to its banks, where boats drift lazily, fishermen work with quiet expertise, and afternoons unfold in the gentle glow of sunlight on the water. Thermal springs scattered throughout the region offer moments of serene rejuvenation, their warm waters inviting travelers and locals alike to pause, breathe, and reconnect with themselves. In these waters, the stress of modern life dissolves, replaced by a profound sense of presence. Uruguay's eastern coastline reveals yet another layer. Punta del Este dazzles gently, a city of sunlit elegance, modern architecture, and playful art installations, yet it never overwhelms the landscape. The Atlantic waves crash with energy, while the Rio de la Plata remains calm and reflective, offering a duality of experiences in one place. Meanwhile, the wild coast of Rocha shows the country's untamed side. Endless dunes, windswept beaches, and the soft roar of nature unmediated by human construction. Sea lions lounge on rocks, waves carve patterns in sand, and the wind carries the salt and freedom of the ocean. Both extremes, luxury and wilderness, exist in harmony, a testament to Uruguay's ability to balance human activity with natural beauty. Cultural expression forms the undercurrent of every visit. Music, from the drum-driven pulse of candombe to the intimate notes of tango, echoes through neighborhoods, connecting history to the present. Mate, passed between friends and strangers alike, is a small ritual that carries immense significance, embodying trust, social cohesion, and presence. Meals are not hurried, they are experiences, shared over conversation, laughter, and reflection. Football, theater, and literature reinforce identity without noise or spectacle, proving that culture in Uruguay is lived, not performed. Even as the country modernizes, it maintains a remarkable equilibrium. Urban centers like Montevideo integrate the river, sunlight, and open spaces into daily life, preserving a sense of calm amidst progress. Streets remain walkable, public spaces encourage community, and nature remains never far away. Even in moments of leisure or celebration, restraint ensures that life feels abundant rather than overwhelming. As night falls, Uruguay's landscapes transform under the stars. In rural areas, total darkness allows constellations to dominate the sky, while city lights glow gently, revealing rather than concealing. Waves, wind, and the quiet presence of animals remind visitors that life continues outside of human observation. In these nocturnal hours, the country's true power is evident. It does not rely on spectacle, but on harmony, continuity, and depth. By the end of this journey, Uruguay has revealed itself as a country that rewards attention, patience, and presence. Its vast plains, quiet rivers, expansive coastlines, and thoughtful culture leave impressions that linger far longer than any photo or landmark. It is a land that teaches that life does not need to be loud to be meaningful, that beauty does not need to be dramatic to be powerful, and that the most memorable journeys are those that touch the heart, mind, and spirit simultaneously. Uruguay exists quietly, confidently, and with enduring grace. It is a country of gentle horizons, reflective waters, and cultural depth. And while it may not announce itself loudly, those who pause, observe, and embrace its rhythm discover an unforgettable richness, one that stays with you, shaping your perception of both the world and your own place within it. Uruguay's final layer of wonder reveals itself not in its cities, beaches, or rivers alone, but in the subtle interconnection between all these elements, a harmony that defines the country's character and leaves a lasting impression on anyone willing to slow down and observe. Here, every experience, from the quietest riverbank to the sunniest stretch of coast, becomes part of a larger story, one of balance, reflection, and understated beauty. In the interior, the plains stretch endlessly, a sea of green interrupted only by solitary trees, gentle hills, and the occasional estancia. These expanses feel alive, not because they demand attention, but because they create space for contemplation. The rhythm of life here is dictated by sun, soil, and season, rather than clocks or technology. Farmers rise with the first light, tending to fields and animals, while horses graze with a natural calm that reflects centuries of coexistence between humans and land. The Gaucho, emblematic of Uruguay's rural soul, embodies freedom, patience, and skill, moving through this landscape with a quiet authority that invites admiration and respect. Rivers thread through this countryside like ribbons of life. The Uruguay River, serene and expansive, defines the western border, providing water, food, and connection to towns along its banks. Small villages cling to the shoreline, where boats drift lazily, nets dry in the sun, and conversations float in the warm air. Each town carries its own subtle rhythm, a reflection of a life guided by nature's flow rather than human urgency. Thermal springs add another layer to this landscape, offering gentle warmth that soothes the body and mind. Immersing oneself in these waters is more than relaxation. It is a return to balance, a chance to feel connected to the Earth's quiet energy. Uruguay's coastline continues this story of duality and harmony. Punta del Este showcases elegance and modernity without arrogance. Its beaches are inviting, its streets orderly, and its cultural offerings refined. Yet just beyond the city, the wild eastern coast of Rocha offers solitude and raw natural beauty. Endless sand dunes, untamed beaches, and the constant, resonant sound of waves. Sea lions bask undisturbed on rocky outcrops. Birds wheel overhead, and the wind carries the salty freedom of the ocean inland. Both experiences coexist within Uruguay, illustrating a national philosophy that embraces contrast without conflict. Cultural life flows quietly beneath every surface of the country. Music, whether the powerful drumming of candombe, the reflective notes of tango, or the subtle cadence of folk melodies, tells stories of history, identity, and community. May, shared among friends and strangers alike, reinforces connection and presence. Meals, especially the asado, become extended rituals where conversation is as essential as the food itself. Football, literature, and local art bind communities together, emphasizing participation and shared experience over spectacle. In Uruguay, culture is not something observed from a distance. It is lived deeply and consistently. Even in its urban centers, Uruguay maintains this equilibrium. Montevideo, with its wide avenues and riverside promenade, merges city life with nature effortlessly. Neighborhoods are walkable, parks are cherished, and public spaces encourage both interaction and reflection. The city demonstrates that development and human comfort need not come at the cost of openness or calm. Life in Uruguay, whether in the capital or in a remote village, feels measured, intentional, and humane. Nightfall transforms the country yet again. Stars dominate rural skies, while city lights glow without overwhelming. The wind, waves, and distant animals create a soundscape of serenity. Silence is not emptiness. Here, it is a presence, grounding and profound. The natural world continues its rhythm uninterrupted, and human life moves alongside it, not against it. These moments, when the world slows and becomes intimate, reveal Uruguay's true essence. It is a land defined by restraint, subtlety, and enduring grace. By the conclusion of this journey, Uruguay is no longer just a country on a map. It becomes an experience, a feeling, a quiet lesson in harmony. Its plains, rivers, coasts, and cultural traditions blend seamlessly, teaching that beauty is not always loud, that depth does not require exaggeration, and that some of the most profound experiences come from patience, presence, and observation. Uruguay leaves its mark not through spectacle, but through the quiet imprint of its character, a memory that lingers long after the journey ends. Uruguay's subtle power, enduring beauty, and human-centered rhythms ensure that those who travel here carry a part of the country with them. It is a place that stays in the mind, softens the heart, and reshapes the way one perceives the world. And in this quiet, deliberate, and timeless presence, Uruguay reminds us that greatness often whispers rather than shouts, inviting us to slow down, observe, and ultimately feel. As the sun sets over Uruguay's rivers, plains, and coasts, the true essence of this extraordinary country becomes clear. It is a land that moves with patience, that balances tradition and modernity, and that teaches the power of stillness, connection, and presence. From bustling streets to solitary beaches, from gauchos on the Pampas to quiet riverside towns, Uruguay leaves a lasting imprint not in monuments, but in memory and feeling. Carry its rhythms, its beauty, and its quiet wisdom with you long after the journey ends, and you will understand why Uruguay is not just a destination. It is an experience that stays with the soul. Thanks for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed exploring Prague as much as I enjoyed guiding you through it. If you found this travel guide helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more beautiful destinations from around the world. Got a favorite spot in Prague? Drop it in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, safe travels, and see you in the next video.